Welcome to this episode of Her Rebirth. I'm Angela Peabody, your host. In this conversation, you will hear from a woman who has several talents. I am excited and honored to welcome a fellow advocate, Renee Bergstrom. Hi, Renee, and welcome to Her Rebirth.
Thank you. I am very happy to be with you, Angela.
Great. So let's get started. You have been advocating for women's justice for much of your life, I would say. What inspired you to become such an advocate?
Well, since I had many complications from being cut, I knew no little girl or woman should have to experience this human rights violation. I was willing to share my story if it might help to end the practice.
Right. Now, when you say cut, you're referring to female genital mutilation or cutting, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Where did you begin your life? Tell us.
I grew up on a family farm in the northeast corner of South Dakota in the United States.
Well, tell us about Renee Bergstrom, the educator, first.
Okay, my first two Mayo Clinic positions were technical. And then I went back to college while working full-time and raising teenagers. I was hired as the patient education specialist and loved teaching classes, developing curriculum, creating brochures, videos, exhibits, and an interactive computer program. I went on to get my Doctor of Education degree that led to being on the Mayo Clinic Communication and Healthcare faculty in the program in Professionalism and Ethics. I was also an adjunct college professor and became faculty for the Academy of Communication in Healthcare. Through that organization, I learned skills to help me share my story more effectively.
Okay. Wow. So then that brings me to ask you about the writer, about Renee, the writer, the artist, and the weaver. So you can just take it from the writer and then the artist, the weaver. Share with us all of those things, because when I introduced you, I said you're multi-talented. Tell us about your writing.
Writing became a focus more recently because in 2024, when I became a Public Voices Fellow on Advancing the Rights of Women and Girls with the Op-Ed Project and Equality Now. I published several op-eds, and some of them focused on female genital mutilation cutting.
Okay, and then Renee, the artist.
Well, as a stay-at-home mom raising our three children, I learned to spin wool, dye wool with plant materials, and weave on a loom. I've wove peppermints for our children and wall hangings for our home and for friends. I put the loom away when I started college classes. Then I always had a camera and began selling photo postcards. I also sell cards made from my watercolor paintings. When we moved to our cottage in 2015, I began weaving again, and along with knitting, fiber arts provide the creative balance I need.
So you said it provides the balance that you need. How does weaving, I'm interested in that, because how does weaving give you that balance? How does it help to calm you, for example? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's very rhythmic, and there's a lot of counting involved, and but the rhythm, my arms are moving. I have treadles on my loom, so my legs are moving, and it's it's relaxing. And your mind cannot be elsewhere. You have to focus on what you're doing so you don't make mistakes. And in that way, it provides balance for me.
You're also a leader and an inspiration to many other women, especially women who have experienced female genital mutilation and cutting. After so many years, what caused you to share your story about female genital mutilation and cutting? And also, tell us a little bit about your story. At what age you realized you had experienced FGM, FGMC, and just share your story with us, because I find it to be very interesting, and I think our audience would love to hear that.
Well, when I was 3 years old, my mother was concerned when my little face turned red when I touched my genitals. She took me to a doctor who said, well, I can fix that, and cut my clitoris. And I knew immediately when it happened at age 3, because I remember my mother's at the end of the table and I felt betrayed. And she knew it was a mistake, but because she believed and followed authority figures, she did not stop the doctor from doing it. And he was coming from his religion, and that considered masturbation sinful. This was not a part of my religion at all. And she told me it was a mistake and I should never talk about it. And being silenced takes away a child's innocence. And it's a burden, and one experienced by survivors all over the world. All little girls who are cut are told to never talk about it. And so I was silent for many years to protect my mother, who lived to be 101, to protect my husband, children, and siblings. And then in the 1990s, I was videotaped sharing my story at a NOCIRC conference in Maryland. About 20 years later, in 2016, John Chua from the Richmond American University in London somehow found that video, then found me and came to our home to interview me for his documentary, The Cut, in which he found that female genital mutilation takes place on every continent except Antarctica. And that was the start of my sharing with the world. My story came out in The Guardian later that year. And because of that, some white Christian women here in the United States found me and said, "You mean this doesn't happen to all women?" So it is happening here today, as well as throughout the world.
Thank you, Renee, for sharing that. I'm sure you've shared your story so many times, countless of times, but each time I'm sure it's not an easy task to do, to talk about, because it's emotional. But you are a heroine for attracting those other Caucasian Christian women to reach out to you and discover that all women in the world are not usually cut, do not experience female genital mutilation and cutting. So what kind of impact has all of this discovery have on you, on your life? How, I know you mentioned how you had to keep it a secret because of your children, your husband and your mother or your parents. But what other impact has it had on you when you, FGMC, I mean?
I had difficult giving birth and had to have an extensive episiotomy with my first baby and also with the rest. And it was hard because I was silent about it. I couldn't talk with my friends about my birthing experiences, and I didn't even talk with my sisters. And somehow keeping silent makes you sick. Having secrets make you sick. And I went to Geneva, Switzerland in 1981 and shared my story with organizations over there that were trying to end FGMC. And that was so freeing. And when I came back, I knew that I needed to continue to do this, but I needed more education to be credible. And so that's when I went back to college.
And so you feel that going back to college, how did that shape or reshape your life in your message about female genital mutilation and cutting?
Well, for one thing, getting my doctorate degree, I was then invited to join the Academy of Communication in Healthcare. That's mainly physicians and also other health professionals. And we met for a week every year. And part of that week was focusing on personal awareness. So I had opportunities to practice sharing my story and getting over the emotion. Like the first time, I was shaking so hard that my bones were cold, but they were very supportive. And one of the doctors apologized to me for the whole medical institution for that happening to me. And that was very heartwarming.
So they apologized to you because it was a doctor that actually cut you when you were 3 years old. That's why they were apologizing.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Wow, what an experience. And I'd like for the audience, I'd like to just bring you up to date just in case you don't understand. Renee mentioned earlier in the conversation that they tell all girls worldwide when they experience FGM, they tell them to not talk about it. To not talk about it. In some cultures, they tell them if you mention this to anybody, you will die. So naturally, it is the biggest secret worldwide, a universal secret. The women are not allowed to talk about it. The girls are not allowed to talk about it. And even when they grow into women, they keep it a secret, like she mentioned to you earlier, that it was a secret. She didn't talk to her sisters about it or anyone. what advice do you have for other women who have experienced FGMC and are hesitant to share their stories? Because there are countless of women who in the world who do not share their stories. Even women right in our support group, they prefer to stay quiet, and we don't force them or make them say anything. So what advice would you say to these women who are still hesitant to come out and say that they have experienced FGMC?
Yes. Well, it would be helpful to share with someone from an organization working to end FGMC. When I first told friends and colleagues whom I thought would be empathetic, I was told to never share that story again. For some reason, people can't handle it. And so my advice is to take care of yourself. Timing is crucial. So when you do share, you are feeling healthy that day. And again, to reach out to an organization that's already familiar with the practice and wanting to end it. They will be compassionate and willing to listen and not cut you off.
Exactly. Good advice, Renee. Thanks. Is there a message you want to send out to the people who cut little girls, the perpetrators? What do you have to say to them, whether they are doctors or whether they're just cutters? What do you have to say? What message do you have to say to them?
Deep down, you know cutting is cruel and wrong. So please find another way to make a living and become an advocate for ending the practice. You have power and can use it to save girls from this horrendous abuse. Now, this message applies to plastic surgeons doing labiaplasty as well. It is unethical to take money to cut young women who think their genitalia need altering to be beautiful. We must end the message that there is something wrong with female bodies that needs fixing with a knife.
Great message. Thanks, Renee, because yes, I didn't even think about those women who go, girls and women who go to plastic surgeons and want to alter their genitalia for cosmetic reasons. Here we're talking about women like you and so many other women in the world on every continent except for Antarctica who are forcibly cut. They were babies or little girls and they had no control over their bodies and they were taken and cut. And then you have these girls who want to alter their genitalia for cosmetic reasons. So yes, I'm glad you sent that message out, not only to cutters of female genital mutilation or cutters or doctors who do that, but also to plastic surgeons. So thank you for that. Is there anything else you would like to share that we haven't touched on today? You can take a few minutes before we close to say whatever else you think you would want to say.
Okay. I become angry when people take notice of female genital cutting because I am a white Christian American. No girl or woman of any color anywhere in the world should undergo being cut. Let us women unite to end the practice and educate the men in our lives about the ramifications that impact them as well. Genital cutting is about limiting pleasure. Female sexual pleasure is healthy, not sinful, and benefits their partners as well. Little girls and babies die from being cut, and no culture or religion should be used as a reason to continue this human rights violation. Let us study the root systems. Also, the federal law against FGMC is now being used to condemn gender-affirming care for trans youth that is a beneficial treatment. There is no benefit to cutting girls' genitals. So tell your senators not to conflate FGMC with gender-affirming care. And learn from those who've been most harmed, who have been seeing clearly all along. There are brilliant young survivor leaders throughout the world who could use your support in ending female genital cutting.
Thank you, Renee. Brilliantly said. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation on her rebirth and being a part of her rebirth. Thank you. We appreciate all the work that you do, including weaving, so that you can calm yourself. So thank you, and we appreciate you a lot, Renee. Continue to do what you do. Continue to send your message across the world because it is well received. Take care, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Angela.